Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee. So I thought that today we would go through my makeup collection. I don't have a huge amount of makeup, as you can probably tell from the fact that this little 3-drawer organizer is all that's out. For reference, this is probably, I'd guess, maybe 8 by 9, and each of the drawers is maybe 2.5 inches deep. Those are all in American Freedom. I have a pretty rough system for organization with my makeup. All of my lip products go in this first drawer. In my second drawer, I keep most of my eye products. In recent weeks, I have picked up a new eye palette that does not fit, so it's currently sitting on top. And usually this palette is in there as well, but it's out for my shop my stash. And this bottom drawer ends up being mostly face stuff. Usually if there's something that just kind of needs a spot, it ends up going in here as well. Let's actually start with that as we go through my collection. Not going in any particular order here. This is the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter. I have had this for a couple of years now, though you can't tell because, oh my goodness, this product is huge and probably never ending. I think it's a really beautiful shade. I love how subtle it is. This is great for me in summer. Sometimes I feel like it is just a hair too deep in winter though. Though I am quite fair, I think this would probably work for all year round for most people who are sort of light to medium skin tone. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone who was a bit deeper talk about this product. I would love to know if you are quite dark. How does this work out for you? I'm intrigued. So let's actually go to another Essence product. This is the All About Matte Fixing Compact Powder. I mean, it's just a matte powder. It doesn't have a whole lot of color, but of course, like most such powders, if you put on a lot or if you are really dark, you are going to see it. I think you can even see it a little bit on me where I haven't blended it in quite as well. I do like this. I've used it quite a bit, though clearly I'm not anywhere near panning. I don't tend to wear foundation. When I do, it's more that I dot on concealer all over my face and just buff it in. So I don't have a lot of daily need for this, but I do like keeping it around, and I like having it especially in the summer. My other powder is this loose powder mini from Kat Von D. This was in the birthday gift from Sephora, I think last year. I really haven't gotten a whole lot of use out of this. I've only used it, I believe, to set under eye concealer, which again is not a step that I do particularly often, so I can't give you too much of an opinion on that. Since we've been talking about concealer, this is the one concealer I currently have. It is the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. This is in the shade 100 Ivory. I think this is a pretty good shade match for me. I would be intrigued to try Cool Ivory because I feel this is pretty good in depth, but I think I could use something just a hair cooler. I think this is pretty nice. I am not big into complexion products, as you have probably realized by now, so I don't feel like I really know what makes a good concealer, but this does work for me, and I suspect that I will use it up before I repurchase a different concealer. Speaking of things that just kind of get stuck here, this is the Brow Pow, which is the Balm's eyebrow powder. I got it at Kohl's for about half price. This is in the shade Blonde. It's fine. I was really into doing my brows with powder for quite a while, and I don't know if you could see that, but I mean, I have made a dent in this product. Sorry, didn't want to blind you. But I've just been preferring something a little bit bolder, so I've been finding myself using my brow pencil a lot more in the past few months. let's go with this next. This is the number 7 Airbrush Away Primer. Honestly, I probably need to declutter this. This is a sample that I got probably 2 years ago out of, I believe, a Target beauty box. I don't wear a lot of foundation, so I don't have a ton of use for this. I do put it on my nose sometimes if I just want to decrease the look of pores a little bit, and it works fine for that. I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk about whether or not a primer is good because I just don't use them that often. With a little bit of movie magic, some things have probably just appeared. I realized that I was a slob who had just left out the makeup I'd put on this morning, so I needed to go grab that. Actually, let's hit my one bronzer before we move to blushes. Bronzer is another step that I don't feel particularly drawn to. This is the Tarte Park Avenue Princess Mini. I do like this. I think that it works as well for me as any bronzer I've tried. It does look a little bit orange on me. It's swatched right there. That is not a very good swatch, is it? There it is. It's swatched there. It does give a little more warmth than I usually want. However, I keep it around to get rid of the temptation of buying another bronzer. I don't use it very often. I've owned this for probably 3 years, and it's been my only bronzer the whole time, and there is not even a dent in it. So now we get into blushes. Here's actually another item from the same little kit where I got the Park Avenue Princess Mini. This is one of their 12-hour blushes in Harmony. And clearly I like this because there's pan in it. This is really beautiful. It's sort of a nude pink on me. If you watch pretty much any tutorial on my channel, you will see this. Again, why am I having such a hard time doing swatches today? There it is. It's really an easy, everyday wearable shade for me, and I love it. I get a lot of use out of it. It's looking pretty battered, but I intend to finish this thing. My other powder blush at the moment is this Wet n Wild Color Icon. This is their old packaging. It's in the shade Rosé Champagne. I don't quite understand why it's called rosé. To me, this looks quite peachy, but you know, Wet n Wild can do what they want. I'm gonna swatch this. Why don't I just swatch on my wrist? I feel like that'd be easier. Though I think you do see a little bit more rosiness in the swatch. It's very glowy. I think on a lot of people this would be a highlight. On me, it's still a pretty subtle blush. But it is beautiful. I think these Wet n Wild blushes are really worth checking out. I don't know if they changed the formula when they repackaged, but they are really pretty. So next, let's move on to my two sort of multi-sticks. This is the first one I got. It's the Milk Makeup Lip and Cheek Tint in shade Work. This was the Sephora birthday gift this year. I've actually used up the mascara that came in that. It's very pretty. I love wearing this both on my cheeks and my lips. It does kind of smell funny. However, I don't think that's it going off because it smelled like this when I got it. But yeah, if I opened something that I'd had for 8 months and it smelled like that, I think I would toss it. I also bought this e.l.f. monochromatic multi-stick. This is in the shade Sparkling Rose. I bought this thinking it would be quite a similar product to the Milk one, but in a little bit more of a wearable shade. However, this has quite a bit of sparkle in it. I probably should have seen that coming since it is called Sparkling Rose, but somehow I didn't. This is much more of a cream to powder formula that the Milk one is. And interestingly, though Milk never makes any mention of using it on the eyes, e.l.f. does. I have worn it on the eyes, the cheeks, and the lips. I like this the feeling of this cream powder formula. And however, I don't love the sparkle, especially on my cheeks. Um, I find that the color tends to wear down throughout the day, but the sparkle doesn't. Time to move on to my eye drawer. Let's actually start with these things that I have on top. The first is my Wet n Wild Photo Focus eyeshadow primer. This is probably the second or third one of these that I have gone through. I like it. I've actually repurchased it already. I probably only have, I would guess, a month's worth left in here. Though, who knows? I feel like I got to the point where I thought my last one had about a month in it, and then it lasted like 6. So we'll see if I've learned anything. Now for the brow pencil I was talking about earlier. This is the e.l.f. Instant Lift Brow Pencil, again in blonde. Gives you a swatch of that too. I took the break between these and cleaned up a little bit. I find that this works well for my brows. I have hair that's right in that no man's land in between red and blonde and brown. If you are very light blonde, I suspect that this will be too dark for you. I do wish it was a tiny bit warmer, but I mean, that seems to be the opposite problem that most people have with brow pencils. Okay. Mascara. I only tend to have one mascara open, and it's usually this one. This is the CoverGirl Professional 3-in-1. I actually don't have a strong opinion between the various CoverGirl mascaras. I find that they all work fairly well for me, but this tends to be the cheapest one, and I like the style of brush that they have. I do like these more natural bristle brushes. I don't love the fact that this one's curved. I usually try to pick up the straight one when possible, but you know, this was the one that was on sale when I needed a new mascara, so I don't have a strong enough preference for it to be worth $1's difference. You know, I said I was going to organize this one way, but let's just go through all of the non-shadow products before we talk about eyeshadows. This is the Kat Von D tattoo liner. This is a mini, and again, it was a Sephora birthday gift. This is holding up really well. I really thought that I was going to have to declutter it when I got back to my apartment from being in quarantine with my parents for the past 4.5, 5 months. But no, it's really working pretty well. I feel like I probably should need to get rid of it since I've had it for, 16 months at this point. However, I don't really want to buy another liquid eyeliner. So we're just gonna use this until it dries out. The other eyeliner I have is from, I believe, Wet n Wild. Let me find it. Yep, this is one of the Wet n Wild Mega Last retractable liners. This is in the shade Black Brown, or Brown Black. Black Brown. Let me swatch it. It is just a tiny bit less harsh than a true black. However, I don't know that you can really see even the difference between that and the black tattoo liner. So I tend to use this on my lower waterline. It doesn't last particularly well throughout the day, but it also doesn't smudge, and that's what I'm more worried about. So I'm fine with that. I will probably not use it up. I suspect it will dry out before then, but I feel no need to purchase another eyeliner until this is gone. Now we get to talk about eyeshadow. This is probably the oldest eyeshadow palette that I still own. This is the NYX Avant Pop palette. I tore off the label at some point in the past 3 or 4 years, but I believe this is in the shade Nouveau Chic. NYX palettes are always so hard to open. It didn't originally have shade names, so I just gave them names one day because I felt like it. I've clearly gotten quite a bit of use out of this palette, more out of this warmer side than on the cooler side. I think this is just such a beautiful palette. I love that it's half warm, half cool. I I don't think it was a terrible price. I want to say I bought this for around $15. And yeah, I think I used this almost exclusively for about 6 or 7 months after I bought it. And it's just lovely. There's a reason this is in my shop, my stash. I want to get a lot of good use out of this. And I will link that video if you want to see some swatches. We're going to try to limit the amount of swatches in this video because, oh my goodness, I can't swatch everything. Now on to another NYX palette. This is the NYX Ultimate Utopia. This, along with I think the next thing I'm going to talk about, are my most recent purchases. And I only used this a couple times. It is such a pain to open. Oh my goodness. So I've probably edited that out, but there was about 30 seconds of me struggling to open this thing. However, it is so pretty. I've only used about half the shade in this palette, so I can't really speak a whole lot to quality. But what I found so far is that the mattes that I have used, so this one and this one and this one, have lasted really well throughout the day, and they're easy to blend. I have had a little bit more of a problem with the shimmery shades. I've used this golden brown. It's showing up much more gold in person than I think it looks in the monitor. This peach, the blue, and the green. There is quite a bit of just glitter in them. Even the ones that I think look a little less glittery in the pan show up very glittery on the eye. And I still have a little bit of glitter that I still can't get rid of from yesterday when I was wearing this, even though I've washed my face twice since then. But I don't hate that. I think I'll just need to play around with this palette a little more and figure out how I can make sure that that glitter stays in place throughout the day. But it is such a pretty color scheme. I'm really impressed with NYX's artistic ideas, if not always their execution. I think I sort of promised swatches, so I'll just pick 3 or 4 shades from each palette and swatch them. In this case, I'm going to choose this rust, this blue, and let's get 2 shimmers. I mean, those show up really well on my finger and on my arm. Yeah. I mean, that blue is a little bit hard to see, and it is. It's pretty patchy and more almost a glitter topper than a real full-on eyeshadow. But that yellow-green is stunning. The blue is a little bit patchy, but I feel like I could build it up. And the rust is lovely. And I've been dotting a little bit of rust all over my arm, so that's nice too. Keeping with the NYX theme, this is the other half of my most recent makeup purchase. This is the NYX Ultimate Edit in Ash. This is more of a cool toned palette. I thought this would just be beautiful for fall and winter. I am fairly cool toned, but I don't think I have a lot of cool tones, and especially not anything that goes sort of gray to blue. So I was very excited to play with this. I've really only used these 3 shades so far, but I've been really impressed with them, so I'm excited to use the other 3. And I'm gonna pick, let's see, this one, and this one to swatch. Oh, I'm impressed by that blue. I thought that was not going to swatch as well. And the gray, I feel like I'll need to build up, but I don't know. I'll need to play with it a little bit more. Oh, see, that built up a little bit better. Yeah, I'm excited for that. I think I'll get a lot of good use out of that this winter in particular. These swatches are going to start looking real rough as I just get, as I've wiped them off more and more times, so just be prepared for that. This is the only ColourPop Super Shock that I currently have. It's in the shade Ladybird. It's sort of a golden champagne with quite a lot of glitter in it. In fact, so much glitter that I think it's almost coming off silver in the monitor. This is beautiful, but there is so much glitter fallout. I mean, isn't that just gorgeous? I've only worn this a few times, mostly to things like concerts, because I don't really care in those situations if there's some fallout on my cheeks. But yeah, this is another one that I want to play with and get more use out of, especially since now I am just at home for the next couple months. I feel like I could get some really pretty looks out of this without needing to worry about how it'll wear throughout the day. However, I don't think I'm going to be buying any more Super Shocks anytime soon. I've had a few of these over the years, and I've actually panned two of them completely, but those were both satin finishes, which I loved, but they seem to have largely discontinued. Should we move on to Maybelline now? Let's do it. I have two of these Maybelline City Mini palettes. This is in Chill Brunch Neutrals. Do I know what a cool tone purpley mauvey palette has to do with brunch? No, but it is really beautiful. And I have pan in these two shades. Let me swatch the shade, and oops, let's avoid the one that has the ColourPop swatch on it. This one. These are actually really nicely pigmented. I feel like this comes off a little bit more rosy on the eyes than it looks, at least to me, in the pan. But I haven't gotten a ton of use out of the, for me, right, I don't know what side it is for you right now. I haven't gotten a ton of use out of this right side of the palette. I would like to going forward though. I think that these two shades were giving me some problems in the past, again with glitter fallout, but I am going to figure out how to work with glitter and minimize fallout. I think that needs to be my makeup goal for the next few months. You'll notice that I didn't complain at all about the single matte, well, there's two mattes in the previous palette, and these are just as good. This is the City Mini palette in Matte About Town. Clearly I like this. I have pan in 3 shades. This is such a great little neutrals palette. I can see someone using this in much the same way as people used to use those Naked Basic palettes, just to build out, just to add some sort of staple mattes that might be missing from other palettes, but make things a lot easier to wear. I often will use it in that way. Sometimes I will just do a look with this, especially if I want to wear a really bright or bold lip. I've still got a little bit of glitter on my fingers from the last palette, so I will swatch these, but keep in mind that there's still some glitter on my fingers. I'm going to swatch the 3 that I haven't hit pan on. These are really gorgeous shadows. I mean, they're nicely pigmented. There is a thick amount of that white on there. It is a nice shade, but it doesn't usually show up that stark. They almost blend themselves too. It's a lovely formula. I would be interested to try more of these if I ever... I would be interested to try more of these, and maybe in a bit of a bolder color scheme. So let's actually move on to e.l.f., which is a brand that I hadn't explored the eyeshadows of until quite recently, and then I bought 3 of these. This is the e.l.f. Bite Size in Hot Jalapeno. This is the one that people generally seem to talk about when they talk about how nice these bite-sized quads are. And it is really a lovely little palette. I'm going to swatch just 2 shades, but they're all really pretty. I mean, There's the grass green. And there's that dark matte. They're just lovely. I think I have a tutorial using this on my channel. If it's not up yet, it will be in the next couple days. I really like this. It is what inspired me to get the other two. This is Very Bad. It's the sort of pinky one. I think that it is coming across a little bit washed out on camera. I am not quite as impressed with the quality on this one. Not because it is subpar in any way, just because I feel like sort of pinky tones are a much easier set of colors to get right at the drugstore than green is. But yeah, it's nice quality as well. I'm gonna swatch two of these. Yeah, these are all just really nice. Actually, that's a pretty little watermelon quad. I might have to do a look with that sometime. I'm glad I picked those sets of shades to swatch. That's really pretty. Now let me find my third one. Ah, here it is. This is my final of the Wet n Wild bite-sized quads. This is in Pumpkin Pie. It has a more of a warm brown duo and then more of a cooler brown duo. Though I find that at least on my skin tone, this brown, which looks pretty cool in the pan, pulls pretty warm on the eye. Again, I don't have any complaints about the quality. These are really lovely. I'm super impressed with these. I mean, keep in mind that my fingers are a little bit wet because I've been wiping off on a makeup wipe, but look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? Yeah, I'm super impressed with these little bite-sized quads. I think they're impeccable quality, especially for the price. And I don't mean to say that these are nice. I don't mean that as an asterisk. These are nice quads for the money. I mean, these are nice quads, period. Also, comma, they happen to be a really nice price. Let's talk about my one sleek item, which is this little mini palette. It's in the shade When the Sun Goes Down. I'm gonna try not to blind you. I really have not gotten a ton of use out of this palette with the exception of this shade, which I wore all over my lid for weeks on end last spring. They're all very pretty colors, but I just don't find this format super user-friendly. I have a hard time even getting to the edge on this shade, and I don't feel that my crease brushes and stuff really get into these pans very well. They are very small. Let me see. I'll show you a couple swatches. They are really nicely pigmented. They perform pretty well. I do have a little bit of a hard time with the mattes, which I don't actually think I swatched any of the mattes, but I don't find them particularly impressive. I find them both a little bit darker than what I usually want to build up a look, and just a little bit patchy and not super easy to blend. However, the shimmers are really pretty, and the way I have tended to use this palette in the past was using one of these shimmers as a single shadow look. So I can't complain. It's been really useful for me. Okay, now we're on to the last brand, which is Wet n Wild. Let's start with this palette that's just broken. This is the Wet n Wild Sweetest Candy Quad. These snap. I see so many of these on the pan porn subreddit, and they're almost always snapped right at the hinges, which is upsetting, but it's really pretty. I think the downside to this palette for me is that these two shades are very, very similar. One is matte and one is shimmer, but it's not shimmery enough that you can really tell the difference. I think that it would be a lot more versatile if maybe this shade was a little bit lighter, but it's what, $2? So I think it's still a great deal. I like this pink shade. I find myself using it both as eyeshadow and as blush, similar for the highlight, and I'll swatch that one as well. I mean, this is just the straight Neapolitan ice cream palette, and it's really lovely. Even though I feel like you can't see that pink. I can see it really well, but I don't know how well it's coming across on camera. Just trust me, it swatched really well. We'll talk about the 3 quads first, and then we will discuss the bigger one. This is Silent Treatment. It's their more smoky quad. I use this gray shade a lot. I've started using this sort of mauvey shade as a blush occasionally, and I find it's really beautiful. On me, this highlight shade is a little bit too dark. I think you can see that it's a tiny bit darker and quite a bit more yellow than my skin tone. However, I do sometimes wear it on my cheekbones or on my shoulders, and I think it looks really lovely that way. Let me swatch. So in case you can't tell, I really like these little Wet n Wild palettes. I think they're not quite as nice of quality as the e.l.f. ones. However, I like the color varieties that they have quite a bit more. Isn't that gray shade pretty? I love that. I wore that all over my lid as one shadow look so much this past fall. Now, I've tried almost all of the permanent quads from this line. The one I have not used is, I think it's called Hooked on Vinyl, which has sort of a peach and then a navy in it. This is the only one I would not recommend to a friend. This is Petalette. It's the purple one. I find that this shade in particular is just not great quality. I think I put a pretty heavy swatch so you can see it well on my finger, but it cannot build up on the eye very well. Same with this. Both of these shades end up being more like toppers than full-on eyeshadows. However, this transition shade's really lovely, and I do like this dark purple. But also, this pink hard pans so easily. I think I've had to scrape this like 3 times. And yes, I do use my fingers most of the time when I'm applying lid shades, but I have never had as much of a hard time with hard pan as with this particular shadow. Oh. Almost forgot to swatch one of the mattes. Yeah, I think you can tell how both of those are more of a sheen than a full-on color. But that purple is really nice. And now for, what is this, Rosé in the Air? I believe so. I tore off the sticker too. It's the Modern Renaissance dupe. It's pretty. I really do think that they made a good choice with these transition shades that they've added. I love that there's a very cool one and a very warm one. All of these shades work fairly well. I'm not as impressed with it as I am with the quads, but I have gotten looks that I'm very happy with using all of these shades at different times. And clearly I really like this gold shade. I think that if you have a ton of golds, this will probably not be the most impressive in your collection. And for some reason, I cannot get a pretty swatch of that to show up on camera, but again, it's very pretty in person. I don't know why these lighter shimmers are hard to show on camera. This is gorgeous. I love using this shade as a one shadow look in the winter. This brown. Sometimes I blend it out with this lighter purple shade. I mean, the quality on these is just really nice. It's not astounding the way that the e.l.f. ones are, but for $5, this is really lovely. And I think if you are really drawn to the color scheme of Modern Renaissance but aren't ready to buy, what, $42 palette or something along those lines, this is definitely a nice thing to try. I also think this is a little bit nicer than the I don't have a real problem with like the Alter Ego dupes or Bad Habit dupes or similar, but I do think that Wet n Wild handles their dupe palettes in a little bit more mature way. They don't copy the layout. They do tend to add something of their own flair, and I really appreciate that. Now on to the final drawer, which is my lip products. I'm going to talk about the things that don't have any color first. These are the e.l.f. liquid lipstick removers or lipstick removers. I'm not sure what their exact name is. They're basically just oil in a tube. I find them really handy, especially I usually have one in my purse. I don't have one there now because I'm not going anywhere and won't be for several months. But I think these are really handy, and I think they're about $2, which is really nice for me when I eat lunch and I find that a bolder lipstick or a liquid lipstick has worn off a little bit in the middle of my mouth. I prefer to just take everything off and start again rather than try to layer. So these are really handy. Let's keep with e.l.f. This is one of their matte crayons. It's in Berry Sorbet. I don't love this. I do think it is a very pretty color, but I find that this formula doesn't last particularly well. It gets everywhere. I keep it around because I really do like the color. It's a little bit brighter than most of what I own, but yeah, I don't think I would buy another one of these. I have owned a different one in the past and it dried out and basically fell out of the tube. So I just hope that when that happens with this one, it doesn't happen over any carpet. That's all I ask. e.l.f. Here's a lip brush. I feel like there's another one in here. Yep, another lip brush. This one needs to be cleaned too. Great. Should we move on to Sephora brand now? I think so. I have 3 of these mini liquid lipsticks from the Sephora brand. Let me see if I can't find the other one. There's a red one and the mauve. I have used all 3 of these, I believe, on my channel before, and I swatched them in my smaller makeup collection video, which I will link up here in the cards and have probably referenced already in this video. They're really nice. I don't have a ton of use for this really dark one, but I have used it once or twice and really like the looks I've come up with. So I'm happy to have just one super dark lipstick. Don't need any more, but it's fun to have every once in a while. I have gotten quite a bit of good use out of this red, which is a lot less orange and I think is coming off on camera, and this nude mauve. Now for this flower lipstick, which is my most recent lipstick purchase. This is in the shade Rosy Garden, and it's what I'm wearing today, though of course you can't see me. This is the same day as my Shop My Stash video, which I will also link. It's a really lovely bright pink. It's got a little bit of a purple tone to it, and this has a bit of a floral scent, which I guess is not that surprising considering that the brand's called Flower, but I don't find that it bothers me, and I love the component. I think this just looks a lot more high-end than it was. I think I got this for just under $6, and I'm really happy with it. I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of this shade. Now let's move on to my two ColourPop lip products. I got these in a duo. These are the Just a Tint, I think, lip balm stains, lip stain crayons, something along those lines. I have two of them. This is in the shade A Go Go. It's a pretty rosy berry shade. And I have the shade Chimichanga, which is quite a bright orangey red. They're both beautiful. I've gotten quite a bit of use out of both. Definitely more out of this one, though I think that's largely because I took this home to my parents' house when I quarantined there. But they're both lovely. I think that I will end up using both of these up, and I would consider purchasing another color in this formula. Though if I do buy another one, it will probably be quite light. I was sort of looking up, I think their lightest pink shade. I don't want something super dark in anything that's this glossy. Keeping with this idea of just moving to brands, let's go with Revlon next. Right now, I only have two Revlon lipsticks. They're both from the Super Lustrous line. I have Blushing Mauve and Kiss Me Coral. Blushing Mauve is probably my favorite lipstick right now. I mean, look how close I am to finishing that. I almost don't want to swatch it, but we're keeping with the rest of the video. It's just a very easy everyday color for me. It's in the pearlized formula. Okay, they just call it pearl, not pearlized. But I don't see much pearl in this color. I think it just gives a nice glossy, healthy look to the lips. I love this. I don't think I'm gonna repurchase it like as soon as I run out, but I think next spring this will likely rejoin my collection. Kissing Coral is my other shade. I have quite a hard time wearing oranges, and though I know this is coral, but on me it looks very orange. I mean, you can see that in the monitor. It's a nice formula again, and I think I get as much use out of this as I would out of any quite orangey lipstick. But yeah, this is definitely a shade that I only need one anywhere near this color. It's not an easy everyday wearable shade for me, but I do like it. I really do like these Super Lustrous lipsticks. I think they are one of the better lipsticks that's around at the drugstore. Okay, Revlon, now let's move to Maybelline. I have another Maybelline lipstick somewhere. I think it might be sitting in my drawer at my office. I have the shade Almond Rose here. This is in their Creamy Matte. And I've referred to this as a bright nude pink before. I know that doesn't make any sense, but that is kind of the vibe that it gives off. It is my lips but brighter. Though my lips are quite pink, so hence it's a bright pink. I like this formula. I've used up, I think, like 2 or 3 of not this shade, but in this formula before. Lovely. Would buy more. Probably will buy more at some point. I also don't have it here. It's the lipstick I mentioned probably being in my office. I have the shade Pink for Me, which is one of those, it's a more creamy shade, and it is one that they released, I think, a year or 2 ago as a release that every color was supposed to work for everyone, and it is really lovely. It's sort of a nudie pink on me. Really like it. Wear it a lot. That's probably why it's sitting in my drawer at work, because it is a shade that just goes with everything. I currently only own one of these Maybelline matte inks. I've owned 2 or 3 others at different points, and they've just dried out on me. This shade I wear a lot during the fall and winter. It is bright. It really straddles the line between being pink and red. It's a little bit dark. It's just gorgeous. It's not really a summer shade for me, but I love this. I wear this probably twice a week during the winter. They also smell really good. Don't know if that matters in a liquid lipstick, but thought I'd throw that out there. Do you see that I have a type? I really do like my pinks. Let's move on to NYX now. I have two butter glosses. This is in the shade Vanilla Cream Pie, which is a fairly bright pink. And then this is Tiramisu. I just find tiramisu a little bit easier to wear for every day. Vanilla Cream Pie is always the focal point. It has a hard time blending into the background, which is what I usually prefer of a gloss. Usually when I'm wearing a gloss, it's because I have quite a bit going on my eye and I want something that's just a little bit more neutral. It's also harder to get this one to not look streaky. Again, this is not showing up quite as pink on camera, I think, as it is in person. Oops. Made a mess of that. All right. Was able to clean that up. And now let's swatch Tiramisu right next to it so you can see the difference. Yeah. It's just a little bit warmer and a little bit more everyday for me personally. I have owned several of these NYX Soft Matte Lip Creams over the years, but I am currently down to just one. This is in Can. It's a rosy nude. Shocking, I know. I really like this color. I think this formula is really nice in lighter shades. If you can find a nude or a soft pink that works for you, I think you'd really like it. The darker shades can be pretty patchy, but shades that are close to your lip color wear really gracefully throughout the day, and they're really comfortable. They do look matte, but they aren't dry. I can wear these for multiple days in a row without having a problem. And yeah, they really have a really nice shade range too. So I think everyone would be able to find something they liked unless they were super into really dark colors. I would stay away from those. Okay, now for Wet n Wild. Can you tell that I like my drugstore products? I have this lip gloss. This is one of the Mega Slips lip glosses in the shade Great Correlation. On me, this is quite a peachy coral. It's very sheer. Again, this is the kind of gloss that I like because it's so easy to wear. This is not my favorite formula. I definitely prefer the Butter Gloss formula. I also like Rimmel's. I can't think of what they call them. Super Shine, maybe? The Rimmel lip glosses that they've had forever. I like those better as well. But this is very serviceable, and I enjoy using it. This is one of the really cheap Wet n Wild lipsticks. I know that everything from Wet n Wild is kind of pretty cheap, but this is the more inexpensive line. This is in Dark Pink Frost, and it is very frosty. It has a lot of pearl to it. On me, the shade works. I think that with this formula, you need to be really careful with your shade. I think this would look awfully Paris Hilton on a lot of people in a not so great 2005 kind of way. However, I really like this shade. I find that the shade looks great when I put it on, but if I need to reapply, I feel like the pearlescence almost builds up, so it looks more pearly every time I need to reapply. So I find myself tending to put this on in the morning and then maybe bring a gloss along and put that on top rather than reapplying the lipstick. So yeah, I don't think I would buy another one of these, but I really do appreciate this color. I think it's very interesting, and I think it really suits my skin tone in a way that I didn't really think it would. I thought it would look nice, but I didn't know that I would like it that much when I purchased it. And the final lipstick I have is one of the Wet n Wild Mega Last. This is in the shade Wine Room. I didn't realize how close that was to the Flower lipstick. It is just a little bit more on the red side than Flower. This is a beautiful color. I find myself, every time I put this on, being like, wow, I should wear this more often. And that is the only lipstick that just happens to every time I put it on. I really love this. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any particular questions about any of these products, I would be happy to answer. I've used pretty much everything except for the 2 newer NYX palettes quite a lot. And really, by the time I put this up, I probably will have used those 3 or 4 more times. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I think it's time for me to get washed up now. Hope you have had a great day. I would love it if you would like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!